An entry foyer with a stairway, doorways, and open doors is considered a habitable room and is subject to the 2-foot wall space and 6-foot spacing rules of the National Electrical Code, or NEC. The NEC defines a habitable room as a room or space for living purposes, such as a living room, dining room, bedroom, family room, den, library, or similar room. An entry foyer is a space that serves as the entrance to a building and typically leads to other habitable rooms. It is intended for living purposes, such as greeting guests or storing personal belongings. The 2-foot wall space and 6-foot spacing rules apply to habitable rooms to ensure that there is adequate space for furniture placement, movement, and electrical equipment. These rules are necessary for safety and convenience in living spaces. While an electrician may refer to the entry foyer as a hallway, the NEC does not define a hallway as a separate category. In the context of the NEC, a hallway would be considered a type of corridor, which is a transitional space between rooms. Corridors do not fall under the same occupancy classification as habitable rooms and therefore are not subject to the same wall space and spacing requirement. Based on the NEC definition and the intent of the code, an entry foyer with a stairway, doorways, and open doors should be classified as a habitable room and subject to the 2-foot wall space and 6-foot spacing rules. Let's delve deeper into the specific aspects of the NEC that support this classification. Firstly, consider the purpose of the entry foyer. It's not merely a transitional space like a corridor. It's a functional part of the living area, where people pause, interact, and often store personal items. This aligns with the NEC definition of a habitable room, which includes spaces used for living purposes. Secondly, examine the NEC requirements for receptacle placement in habitable rooms. These requirements, including the 2-foot wall space rule, are designed to ensure that electrical outlets are readily accessible and conveniently located for occupants. Applying these rules to an entry foyer promotes safety and usability, especially when considering the potential use of lamps, chargers, or other electrical devices in this space. Thirdly, let's address the distinction between a hallway and an entry foyer. While a hallway primarily serves as a passage between rooms, an entry foyer typically has a more defined purpose as a welcoming and functional space. This distinction is crucial in determining the appropriate electrical requirements under the NEC. Fourthly, it's important to note that the NEC is a comprehensive set of standards designed to ensure electrical safety in buildings. Its definitions and requirements are based on the intended use of different spaces. Classifying an entry foyer as a habitable room aligns with the overall intent of the NEC to protect occupants from electrical hazards. Fifthly, consider the potential consequences of misclassifying an entry foyer as a hallway. This could lead to inadequate receptacle placement, potentially creating a safety hazard and inconvenience for occupants. By adhering to the NEC requirements for habitable rooms, we can ensure that entry foyers are equipped with the necessary electrical infrastructure for safer and convenient use. Sixthly, the 2-foot wall space rule dictates that no point along a wall line in a habitable room should be more than 6 feet from a receptacle. This rule aims to minimize the use of extension cords, which can be a source of electrical hazards. Applying this rule to an entry foyer ensures that occupants have access to readily available power outlets, reducing the risk of overloading circuits or creating tripping hazards. Seventhly, the 6-foot spacing rule further emphasizes the importance of convenient receptacle placement. By ensuring that receptacles are spaced no more than 12 feet apart along the wall line, the NEC aims to provide adequate electrical access throughout the habitable room. This rule promotes flexibility in furniture placement and reduces the need for multiple extension cords. Eighthly, in situations where there is a stairway within the entry foyer, additional considerations may apply. The NEC includes specific requirements for lighting and receptacle placement near stairways to enhance safety. These requirements are particularly relevant in entry foyers where stairways are present. Namely, it's important to consult with a qualified electrical inspector or engineer to ensure compliance with the NEC in specific situations. Local interpretations of the code may vary, and the professional can provide guidance on the appropriate application of the rules. Tenthly, the NEC is updated periodically to reflect advancements in technology and address emerging safety concerns. Staying informed about the latest edition of the NEC is crucial for electrical professionals and building owners alike. By understanding the code's requirements and applying them correctly, we can create safer and more functional living spaces. Furthermore, it is critical to differentiate the distinct purposes of the spaces within a residential or commercial building to determine the correct application of electrical codes. Let's consider some additional factors that reinforce the classification of an entry foyer as a habitable room subject to the 2-foot and 6-foot spacing rules as per the NEC. 1. The presence of furniture. Entry foyers often contain furniture such as benches, tables, or coat racks. This indicates the space is intended for living purposes and supports its classification as a habitable room. 2. The use of decorative elements. Entry foyers frequently feature decorative elements like artwork, mirrors, or plants. These elements enhance the aesthetic appeal of the space and further suggest its intended use as a living area. 3. The integration of lighting. Entry foyers typically have lighting fixtures that provide illumination for various activities such as greeting guests or organizing belongings. The presence of lighting reinforces the space's functionality and its classification as a habitable room. 4. The consideration of traffic patterns. Entry foyers serve as a transitional space between the exterior and interior of a building. Analyzing traffic patterns in the entry foyer helps determine the appropriate placement of receptacles and lighting fixtures to ensure safety and convenience. 5. The presence of doorways and openings. Entry foyers often have doorways and openings that lead to other habitable rooms. These openings create a sense of connectivity and integrate the entry foyer into the overall living space. 6. The potential for occupancy. Entry foyers may be occupied by people for extended periods, such as when waiting for guests or engaging in conversations. This prolonged occupancy further supports the classification of the space as a habitable room. 7. The integration of technology. Entry foyers may incorporate technology such as intercom systems, security cameras, or smart home devices. These technological integrations enhance the functionality and convenience of the space and reinforce its classification as a habitable room. 8. The consideration of accessibility. Entry foyers should be designed to be accessible to people of all abilities. This includes ensuring that receptacles and other electrical components are placed at appropriate heights and locations to accommodate individuals with disabilities. 9. The impact of local building codes. Local building codes may have additional requirements or interpretations that affect the classification of entry foyers. Consulting with local building officials can help ensure compliance with all applicable regulations. 10. The importance of documentation. Maintaining accurate documentation of electrical installations in entry foyers is crucial for future reference and maintenance. This documentation should include details about receptacle placement, wiring methods, and circuit breaker assignments. In summary, classifying an entry foyer as a habitable room and applying the 2-foot and 6-foot spacing rules of the NEC is essential for ensuring electrical safety, convenience, and compliance with building codes. By carefully considering the purpose, functionality, and potential occupancy of the space, we can create entry foyers that are both aesthetically pleasing and electrically safe. The electrician's perspective of considering the entry foyer as a hallway needs further examination within the context of the NEC. While the hallway facilitates movement between rooms, its electrical requirements differ significantly from those of a habitable room. The NEC definition of a hallway typically refers to a narrow passage primarily intended for pedestrian traffic. It doesn't encompass the broader functionality and living purposes associated with an entry foyer. The NEC provides specific guidelines for receptacle spacing in hallways, which are generally less stringent than those for habitable rooms. This reflects the reduced need for electrical outlets in spaces primarily used for passage. Furthermore, the NEC emphasizes the importance of lighting in hallways to ensure safe navigation. However, the lighting requirements for hallways may differ from those for habitable rooms, depending on the specific application. The electrician's perception may stem from a focus on the transitional aspect of the entry foyer. However, it's crucial to recognize that the space also serves as a functional part of the living area, where people interact and engage in various activities. The electrician's interpretation may also be influenced by the specific layout and design of the entry foyer. In some cases, an entry foyer may resemble a hallway in its physical characteristics. However, the NEC classification is based on the intended use of the space rather than its physical appearance. Therefore, it's essential to consider the overall purpose and functionality of the entry foyer when determining its electrical requirements. Misclassifying an entry foyer as a hallway could lead to inadequate receptacle placement and lighting, potentially creating safety hazards and inconveniences for occupant. For example, the absence of readily available outlets could result in the use of extension cords, increasing the risk of electrical overloads and tripping hazards. In conclusion, while the electrician's perspective may offer a different interpretation, the NEC definition and intent clearly classify an entry foyer as a habitable room subject to the 2-foot and 6-foot spacing rules. This classification ensures that the space is equipped with the necessary electrical infrastructure for safe and convenient use, aligning with the overall goal of the NEC to protect occupants from electrical hazards. It's crucial to adhere to the NEC guidelines and consult with qualified professionals to ensure accurate classification and proper electrical installation in entry foyers. This approach promotes safety, functionality, and compliance with building codes, ultimately creating a more comfortable and secure living environment. When interpreting electrical codes, it is imperative to consider the code's overall intent, which is to ensure safety and prevent electrical hazard. The NEC achieves this goal through specific requirements tailored to the intended use of different spaces within a building. In the case of an entry foyer, its classification as a habitable room reflects the recognition that the space serves as more than just a passageway. It's a functional part of the living area, where people interact, store belongings, and engage in various activities. Applying the 2-foot and 6-foot spacing rules to an entry foyer ensures that occupants have access to readily available electrical outlets, reducing the need for extension cords and minimizing the risk of electrical hazards. These rules also promote convenience by providing flexibility in furniture placement and the use of electrical devices. Furthermore, the NEC lighting requirements for habitable rooms are designed to provide adequate illumination for various activities, enhancing safety and comfort. In contrast, the electrical requirements for hallways are typically less stringent, reflecting their primary function as passageways. Misclassifying an entry foyer as a hallway could lead to inadequate electrical infrastructure, potentially compromising safety and convenience. The NEC is a comprehensive document that addresses a wide range of electrical issues, from wiring methods to grounding and bonding. Its requirements are based on years of experience and research, and they are constantly updated to reflect advancements in technology and address emerging safety concerns. Consulting with a qualified electrical inspector or engineer is essential for ensuring compliance with the NEC and accurate classification of different spaces within a building. These professionals have the expertise and knowledge to interpret the code correctly and provide guidance on the appropriate application of its requirements. In addition, local building codes may have additional requirements or interpretations that affect the classification of entry foyers. It's crucial to consult with local building officials to ensure compliance with all applicable regulations. By adhering to the NEC and consulting with qualified professionals, we can create entry foyers that are both aesthetically pleasing and electrically safe. This approach promotes a comfortable and secure living environment for all occupants. The debate surrounding the classification of an entry foyer highlights the importance of clear communication and collaboration between electrical professionals and building owners. Openly discussing the intended use of the space and the relevant code requirements can help ensure accurate classification and proper electrical installation. Furthermore, it's essential to document all electrical work performed in the entry foyer, including details about receptacle placement, wiring methods, and circuit breaker assignments. This documentation can be invaluable for future reference and maintenance. In conclusion, the classification of an entry foyer as a habitable room subject to the 2-foot and 6-foot spacing rules of the NEC is based on the space's intended use, functionality, and potential occupancy. Adhering to this classification ensures that the entry foyer is equipped with the necessary electrical infrastructure for safe and convenient use, aligning with the overall goal of the NEC to protect occupants from electrical hazards. Consulting with qualified professionals and maintaining accurate documentation are essential for ensuring compliance with the code and creating a safe and comfortable living environment. The National Electrical Code, or NEC, serves as the cornerstone of electrical safety in buildings, and understanding its nuances is paramount for both electricians and building owners. The question of whether an entry foyer constitutes a habitable room, thereby subjecting it to the 2-foot and 6-foot spacing rules, underscores the importance of interpreting the code correctly. To reiterate, the NEC defines a habitable room as a space used for living purposes, encompassing activities such as greeting guests, storing personal belongings, and transitioning between the exterior and interior of a building. An entry foyer, by its very nature, fulfills these criteria. It's not merely a hallway, which serves primarily as a passageway. Instead, it's a functional part of the living space, demanding adherence to the electrical requirements applicable to habitable rooms. The 2-foot wall space rule mandates that no point along the wall line should be more than 6 feet from a receptacle. This ensures easy access to electrical outlets, minimizing reliance on extension cords, which can pose safety hazards. The 6-foot spacing rule further emphasizes convenient receptacle placement, ensuring that outlets are spaced no more than 12 feet apart along the wall line. This rule promotes flexibility in furniture arrangement and reduces the need for multiple extension cords. The potential consequences of misclassifying an entry foyer as a hallway are significant. Inadequate receptacle placement can lead to the overuse of extension cords, increasing the risk of electrical overloads, tripping hazards, and even fires. Moreover, insufficient lighting can compromise safety, particularly in areas with stairways or uneven surfaces. It's crucial to remember that the NEC is a living document constantly evolving to address emerging safety concerns and technological advancements. Staying abreast of the latest edition of the NEC is essential for electrical professionals and building owners alike. Consulting with a qualified electrical inspector or engineer is always recommended, as local interpretations of the code may vary. These professionals can provide invaluable guidance in the proper application of the rules, ensuring compliance and maximizing safety. In conclusion, the classification of an entry foyer as a habitable room is not merely a technicality. It's a fundamental aspect of electrical safety, ensuring that the space is equipped with the necessary infrastructure to protect occupants from potential hazards. By adhering to the NEC requirements and seeking expert advice, we can create entry foyers that are not only aesthetically pleasing but also electrically safe and compliant. Let's further explore the practical implications of applying the 2-foot and 6-foot spacing rules in an entry foyer. Imagine an entry foyer with a long, uninterrupted wall. Without the 2-foot wall space rule, an electrical outlet might be placed at one end of the wall, leaving the rest of the space without convenient access to power. This could force occupants to use extension cords to power lamps, chargers, or other electrical devices, creating a tripping hazard and increasing the risk of electrical overloads. The 2-foot wall space rule ensures that an outlet is placed within 6 feet of any point along the wall, providing convenient access to power and minimizing the need for extension cords. Now consider an entry foyer with multiple doorways and openings. The 6-foot spacing rule ensures that outlets are spaced no more than 12 feet apart along the wall line, even with the presence of doorways and openings. This prevents large gaps in electrical access and ensures that outlets are readily available throughout the space. In addition to receptacle placement, lighting is another critical aspect of electrical safety in entry foyers. The NEC has specific requirements for lighting in habitable rooms, ensuring adequate illumination for various activities. Insufficient lighting can increase the risk of falls, especially in areas with stairways or uneven surfaces. Proper lighting also enhances security by deterring intruders and providing clear visibility. It's important to note that the NEC is not the only source of electrical regulations. Local building codes may have additional requirements or interpretations that affect the classification of entry foyers. For example, Some local codes may have stricter requirements for receptacle spacing or lighting levels. Consulting with local building officials is essential for ensuring compliance with all applicable regulations. In summary, applying the 2-foot and 6-foot spacing rules and adhering to the lighting requirements of the NEC are crucial for creating safe and functional entry foyers. These rules ensure convenient access to power, minimize the need for extension cords, and provide adequate illumination, enhancing safety and comfort for all occupants. Remember, electrical safety is not a one-time task. It's an ongoing process that requires regular inspection and maintenance. Periodically check electrical outlets and cords for damage, and replace any worn or frayed items immediately. Ensure that smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors are installed and functioning properly. By taking these simple precautions, you can help prevent electrical accidents and protect your home and family. The classification of an entry foyer as a habitable room and the subsequent application of the NEC electrical requirements are not merely academic exercises. They are essential for creating safe, functional, and compliant living spaces. Let's continue to explore the nuances of this topic, focusing on specific scenarios and potential challenges. Consider an entry foyer that also serves as a mudroom with storage for coats, shoes, and other outdoor gear. In this case, the electrical requirements for habitable rooms are even more critical, as occupants may be using electrical devices to dry boots, charge phones, or operate other appliances. The 2-foot and 6-foot spacing rules ensure that outlets are readily available, preventing the need for extension cords and minimizing the risk of electrical hazards. Now, imagine an entry foyer that is part of an open concept floor plan, seamlessly flowing into the living room or dining room. In this scenario, it may be tempting to treat the entire space as a single habitable room, applying the electrical requirements uniformly. However, it's important to consider the specific function of the entry foyer and ensure that it has adequate receptacle placement and lighting to meet its unique needs. Another challenge arises in older homes, where electrical systems may not be up to current code standards. In these cases, it may be necessary to upgrade the wiring, add new circuits, or install additional outlets to comply with the NEC requirements for habitable rooms. It's crucial to work with a qualified electrician to ensure that any electrical upgrades are performed safely and correctly. Furthermore, it's important to remember that the NEC is not a substitute for common sense. Even if an entry foyer meets all the requirements of the code, it's still essential to use electrical devices safely and avoid overloading circuits. Never plug multiple high-power appliances into a single outlet, and always use extension cords that are rated for the intended use. In addition to electrical safety, it's also important to consider energy efficiency when designing and equipping an entry foyer. Use energy-efficient lighting fixtures and consider installing motion sensors to turn off lights when the space is unoccupied. These measures can help reduce energy consumption and lower utility bills. In conclusion, the classification of an entry foyer as a habitable room and the subsequent application of the NEC electrical requirements are not simply about compliance. They are about creating safe, functional, and energy-efficient living spaces that meet the needs of occupants. By understanding the code's requirements, consulting with qualified professionals, and using common sense, we can ensure that our entry foyers are both welcoming and electrically safe.